Kid, man, it's good to see you. We're doing this. We're recording at a different time. I'm on a different computer. Quite frankly, we've spent 26 minutes at this point trying to figure this out. So
yeah,
we're getting there. We're getting there. We were talking about technology. Technology is ridiculous. It's 2021. Like everything should be done automatically for you. You could just, at this point, I feel like you should just be able to think something and it just manifests itself before you. Maybe that's wishful thinking. I don't know.
Yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm the technologist, right? So I hear people say like,
you're part of the
this
problem.
is too hard. This is too hard. Why isn't this easier? You're like, well, it's more complex than that, but I know,
but see, isn't the point of, okay, so there's technology geeks and I would lump you under that umbrella. Okay. Yeah, and then there's designers, and the designers need to work with the geeks. But the geeks don't know how to talk to the designers, and the designers don't know how to talk to the geeks. But the designers should figure out how to communicate in both normal language, like layman's terms, and also geek code or whatever, so that they can help us understand how your freaking minds work. Because the layman like myself has no idea. I'm like, what is going on?
And that's why actually I'm not joking. Like what you said is perfect, because the best designers are guys that used to be programmers and then they design
because they get it. They see it from both sides.
Yeah. They understand the limitations of the technology or what's possible. Because the other problem is you have designers that are just like, they're all creatives and they create something and you're like, that's awesome, impossible. But that's impossible. You can't do that. Right. Like, or they never look past like, well, what happens when that screen is shrink to half the size? Your design goes to shit, right? Like
exactly.
You have to consider more factors. And so the best designers are guys that were programmers and then are also designers, I think anyway. So
I just wish you guys would figure it out so I wouldn't have so much of a headache trying to get on a podcast. I've been doing this for 6 years. Like you'd think I'd have this thing figured out, but I will say though, the migration process from my old computer to this one was actually pretty nice. Yeah. I was worried I'm going to have to copy everything. Yeah. Cause they talk to each other. Right.
Yeah.
I was just worried I'm gonna have to copy everything, then input everything, and then download and install all the new apps and everything. And that was already taken care of. So it was good to go.
So it automatically installed all your programs,
all my programs, all my apps. It saved like my internet passwords and bookmarks and all that stuff. So
that's impressive. Yeah.
That was pretty nice.
Yeah. I don't think that's possible on a Windows PC.
There's a lot that's not possible I was telling you before we hit record, I'm like, why does this look like a 5-year-old coloring book? Okay. Am I right though? Come on. I know you're a PC guy, you're a Windows guy, but why does it look like a coloring book?
I joke, Microsoft has some other products. There's a product called Power Apps, and the joke is that I call it the Teletubby interface.
Yes.
It looks horrible. I'm like, this looks like shit, just by default. Yeah.
They're just playing to the lowest common denominator of the population, apparently. I don't know what it is.
Or they're nerding out and there's no designers part of it. And they're just like, make it work. And that's it. It's like, well, but
what it actually reminds me of
is more important than how it works sometimes.
Well, it's both important. It's both of it's important. If it works, but you can't use it, then it's useless. If it looks good, but you can't use it, then it's also useless.
Yeah.
So, it's technology. It's wonderful until it isn't. And then, we just deal. I was thinking actually with Windows, and then we'll stop beating a dead horse on this.
Okay.
With PC and Windows, I was thinking it looks like the horrendous modern art that we see today. That's what it actually reminds me of. And it's not even art. I don't even know how to describe it, but that's what it looks like. So you have these modern artists designing it, and they don't realize how shitty everybody else thinks it looks. They think it looks good. And it's like when you stare at that big red block in the middle of, the beautiful building, and you're wondering, what the hell is this even supposed to mean? And that's who's designing Windows.
And you're just being insensitive and inconsiderate. Like, how could you judge my art? It's my art.
I think I got the side of the populace on my side on this one.
Yeah. We'll see which technologies are superior when they start taking down your websites and everything because of your political views. And
Yeah,
then we'll
for
see
sure.
who's the ideal technologist. Yeah.
I was going to say, so far we haven't had to deal with that yet, but I shouldn't
Oh
tempt
my
anybody.
gosh.
Holy cow. What a
Well,
crazy
and
thing.
it's funny because we talk to clients all the time. It's like everybody's moving to the cloud. Like it's not even debatable, right? Like it makes sense. It gives you the most functionality. It's more secure than something you'd have on-prem. Like it's just the way to go. And then after the last, few months and the events of websites being turned off by
Parler.
AWS, by Amazon and Parler, you start wondering, like some company owners might go, maybe I don't want to put all my stuff in Amazon's cloud.
Exactly.
Maybe I'm concerned that some woke leftist is going to like figure out where I'm hosting my stuff and I'm going to get my stuff turned off. Right. Like I don't know. It's a weird time. I never thought that would ever happen.
It's not weird. It's dangerous. It's just, we're just setting dangerous precedent left and right. I was talking about cancel culture on my social medias the other day, and some guy's like, oh, there's no cancel culture. It's just free markets. I'm like, come on, bro. Like free markets is okay. I'm going to choose to spend my money here or not here. And so I think it's actually over 8 billion people on the planet decide with their pocketbook where they're going to spend money. And if you don't offer a valuable service or product, then you go under. That's the free market. And if you offer something that people can conceive as valuable, then you make money and you prosper. Cancel culture is not the free market. Cancel culture is going after somebody, personally attacking them, trying to deplatform them, trying to get them to lose their interest.
It has nothing to do with the service. It's like social media.
Nothing to do with their service. It has to do with what they said that you didn't like or that you're pretending. And I'd say pretending on purpose, that you're pretending to be upset about. Because let's be real. The latest one that I heard was this woman is upset that there's that one. We can talk about that one. That's another one I was thinking of too. But this woman whose father designed the Lombardi trophy was mad at Tom Brady because he was drunk and he tossed
it across a boat.
Yeah. It's like, you can't really be offended by that unless you're so pathetically weak. And I just can't even envision somebody who's that weak that they're like, Tom Brady owes my father an apology
because he designed the trophy. Like, what? Yes. You own the trophy now? Like,
yes.
I don't even understand.
And of course, normal people don't understand it. And that's cancel culture. That has nothing to do with a product being brought to market and whether or not it's valuable or not. Yeah. So I was debating with a guy until I realized he was name calling and things like that. And I realized, okay, this guy is just a troll. But it's funny because there's actually people you don't know anymore. You don't know if they're being a troll or you don't know if they're actually that dumb. Yeah. That's the scary part. There's people that are that dumb that you can't tell if they're trolling you or if they actually believe the bull crap that's being spewed out of their mouth.
Yeah. And at the root of cancel culture is stupidity and or lack of critical thinking, right? I would say I really do. They've dehumanized other people, right? They've classified them in a group. They don't consider the other point of view. They're not doing critical thinking. And so they're offended.
I don't think it's lack of critical thinking. It is that for sure. But I don't think that's the root. I think the root is emotional immaturity. That they've been handed everything for decades of their life, that when things don't go their way, it couldn't possibly be about them. If somebody says something, just even in the slightest, that might come across as threatening or harmful to that individual, they think they're being personally attacked and persecuted. Yeah. And so we have this victimized culture, and we also reward people for being victims at this point. Yeah. And so there's no resilience in these people. Yeah. I have people every day who mock me, who ridicule me, who say things about me that I won't repeat here in this podcast. And yet I keep doing it because I have enough emotional maturity to just deal with it and just keep going. But some people just don't have that because they've never had to do it before.
Well, and I don't think you're a good comparison, because I think a lot of these people they're not being called names. They're not being criticized. They're looking to be a victim. Like,
Yes,
they're like
clamoring
grasping,
for it.
like, give me something, right? Give me something for me to be a victim
Right.
about. Right. And that's where their complaints come from, but it's a choice. It's not even directed towards them. They're going out of their way to find it.
Well, and so here's an interesting dichotomy. It's kind of a trap. It's like, a lot of these people, I think a lot of them are just doing it for their 15 minutes of fame. And it's sad because they actually get it. We as a society collectively give it to them. But there's a fine line between just brushing these weirdos off, and a lot of that we should, and then also addressing a real concern in society, which is the cancel culture phenomenon. So trying to find the line between ignoring the wackos, but then also addressing the problem.
Yeah.
That's an interesting thing. And I haven't found that line yet. And I don't think it's a hard and fast line, but we got to be careful of giving people attention that they don't deserve, and yet still address some of the issues that are being brought up.
Yeah. And it goes back to what we talk about, I think, on this podcast quite a bit, is like being clear on your vision. And I think people get lost in things, right? Where the feminist movement at one point, their focus was great. And now it's become something drastically different, right? Even some of these men's movements, there might have a genuine or original, like, good focus and direction and mission, and then it goes off track, right? And so it is with us. It's like, oh, I want my focus to be successful in work. And if you're not careful, what happens? Your family goes to the wayside and you're dropping the ball there. Right. And we have to make sure that we maintain that focus and that proper vision of what we're about and what we're kind of working towards. But
yeah. And I think a lot of these movements and these propositions and these things that could ultimately be good things also get hijacked by those who have, we'll just call it, less than noble ambitions and pursuits for the group or the movement or the organization. So you have to be careful of these, like, they're not even traitors. They're flat out enemies. You have to be careful of these people who, like, infiltrate and get into your organizations and sabotage things, and then take them over as their own. Like, it's So
it's
anyways,
weird. It's a crazy time.
It is, but that's why this podcast is so good, because we're talking about these issues, and I brought it up on Instagram the other day. And I said, some people get very upset when I talk about real issues like transgender and homosexuality and politics and some of these, like, biggest, hottest issues, race issues, and people get upset about that. But we're not going to talk about it because people are upset, or because it tends to get people riled up? No, I think that's actually the exact reason that we should talk about it, because familiarity.
We're not talking about it.
Right. Because if you make it familiar, it's the same thing with children. It's the old adage, curiosity killed the cat, right? So if we don't talk about it, then it goes underground. It doesn't go away. And then the strangest fringe outliers are the only people that are talking about it. The extremes on all sides of the equation, the extremes are talking about it, instead of the normal, level-headed, rational people who should actually be hosting and facilitating the conversations. So if you're listening to this and you appreciate what we're doing, just share the message. That's all we ask. Just share it. Take a screenshot. A lot of you guys do that on Instagram because that's where I'm most active. Just share it on Instagram or Facebook or Twitter or wherever you're doing the thing. If you appreciate what we're doing. If you don't appreciate what we're doing because they're difficult conversations and it makes you uncomfortable, what I would say to you is subscribe to the podcast and keep listening.
Yeah. And ask yourself why you're offended.
Right.
Like, come to that conclusion. Don't stop there. I'm offended. That's not a complete thought. Like, finish the thought and figure out why you're offended.
Right. And then we can have a civil discussion about it. And I tend to be, I try to be, I don't always, but I try to be civil and rational and reasonable in my dialogue with you guys on the socials. I did something fun, I guess I would say, on Instagram the other day. I did an Instagram live and I invited guys to do one-to-one lives with me. So I took 3 or 4 random people.
Yeah.
We had a state trooper join us. We had a friend of mine who I met years and years ago in BNI from Southern Utah. We had a couple other guys join me, a guy that had lost gosh, I want to say he lost, I can't even remember right offhand, but it was like 50 or 60 pounds, I think, over the past several months. Like we had some cool guys join. So I'm going to be doing that more often over there too. It was a lot of fun, actually. It was really fun.
That's at Ryan Mickler for Instagram and Twitter, including Facebook, for those guys who want to check those.
All right.
That's fun. I'm glad you did that.
We're 20 minutes deep into this thing. Should we answer some questions?
I think we call it quits. We've already addressed the critical issues.
This is all we need to talk about today. You guys stew on that, and we'll be back next week. See ya.
Yeah. If you're offended, complete the thought. Stop being offended. Find the conversation that's down the middle and encourage critical thinking and discussion. There you go.
Well, you know, it's funny when you say stop being offended. Yeah, and Windows that's stupid.
iOS, yeah.
When you say stop being offended, it's actually that easy. No, I should say it's that simple. Because here's the interesting thing about taking offense. I mean, even the phrase, take offense. You, Kip, have to take my comments as offensive.
Yeah. I have to receive it.
If I came to you and I said all the bad things I possibly could about you, Kip, and I just threw you under the bus and I just mocked you, ridiculed, made fun of you, you still have to accept it in order to be offended.
Yeah.
And if you don't accept that, if I say you're an idiot and you think, well, that's actually not true, you wouldn't be offended because you know you're not.
Yeah. Well, and it's simpler. Yeah, I think it's even simpler than that in the sense of most time, no one's telling you you're stupid. Most of the time, no one's actually even calling you names. You're making that up, right? Yeah, they said true. XYZ, and you're like, oh, that must mean that Ryan thinks I'm stupid. Like, it's like, dude, you didn't even say that, you know? Yeah, now, point. I know you allude to that shit all the time, but, you know, I just blow it off.
Yeah. Like on your Facebook post the other day or yesterday or today, you wrote like iron sharpens iron. I'm like, cool. Why are you there?
I know. It was super great. I was like, well, but there's truth to it because I just get my ass kicked with those guys. And so I'm like, that's true. But and my comment was not all irons created equal.
I didn't see that. I'll have to go and look at it. Yeah. All right, man. Let's get to some questions.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Instagram is where we're getting these questions. And like we mentioned earlier, at Ryan Mickler on the socials, Mr. Sharpster7, what would you say are 3 to 5 books on finance that guys should read? I know some Dave Ramsey stuff like having an emergency fund, et cetera, but who else has good financial advice?
There's A Random Walk Down Wall Street is pretty good. I can't remember it's not Bogle. I can't remember the author.
I can look it up too.
Random
Walk Down Wall Street.
Yeah, down Wall Street. That one's really good about how the stock market actually works. So it really depends on what you're looking for. You know, I think Ramsey has some good stuff on cash flow and budgeting and paying off debt. I mean, I would say it would be hard to argue that there's been somebody more influential than him when it comes to those items. So Ramsey's books are great for that. But yeah, Random Walk Down Wall Street.
Burton, McKell.
Yeah. I don't read a whole lot of finance books. Maybe that's just because I was in the business for so long. Gosh, I'm just trying to think. I wish I would have been prepared for this. Stupid.
Who cares about finances? You don't need money.
I mean, the interesting thing is we kind of already know what to do. Really, probably a better book would be a discipline book for you, you know, because you know to budget, you know to spend less than you make. Like, you know these things. Most of us do. Now, if you wanted to learn about cryptocurrency or how the stock market works or how to pay off debt most effectively, then, you know, do some searches in Amazon and find a book and find several books and get after it and consolidate that information into one place. But I just don't read a whole lot of financial books. I really don't.
That wasn't helpful. Next question.
I gave him one, A Random Walk Down Wall Street. Also, too, I would say maybe because people ask me about finances a lot. That might have something to do with my background, but maybe instead of just saying what's a good financial book, maybe say what's a good book on investing, or what's a good book on paying off debt, or what's a good book on budgeting. It's the same thing with how do I improve my relationship? I don't know. What's the problem with your relationship?
Yeah.
Is it communication? Is it intimacy? Like, that's a more specific, isolated question. And you're just bound to get better answers when you do that. I've said it,
Yeah.
and I've heard this quote, and I've had this as one of my favorite quotes for a long time. The quality of your life will be determined by the quality of questions that you ask. So if you say, so here's the interesting thing about the finance, and I'm not trying to pick on the guy who asked about finance, but it's a good illustrative point. If you say, what's a good book on finance? And I say A Random Walk Down Wall Street, which happens to be about how to invest in the stock market and how the stock market works, you might come back and say, well, I'm not investing in the stock market. I was asking about real estate. Okay, well, then you should have asked about real estate.
Yeah. Yeah. Or finance. You shouldn't be investing in the market if you have zero cash flow. So right. Maybe that's what you need to focus on first. Yeah.
Bigger Pockets podcast. There's a great resource. Stacking Benjamins. That's a great resource. That's a podcast. Good Financial Sense by Jeff Rose is another great podcast. So my financial information is usually consumed via audio. So Bigger Pockets podcast, which is real estate heavy. Stacking Benjamins, which is very entertaining and funny.
Is that Puff Daddy? The
Joe Saul High? Close. And then the third one is Good Financial Sense by Jeff Rose.
So all right. Someone appreciated my Puff Daddy joke. Someone did.
I don't think so. I don't think anybody did.
All right.
We don't have that many listeners that you'd find the one person.
The one guy listening to hip hop from the 90s.
That's right.
All right. Zeke Bishop. Why do most people in society act like a victim? I don't understand why one would want to focus on that.
I actually don't think most people do.
Do you think it's by accident, or you don't think most people are victims?
I don't think, I don't think most people are victims, but I don't think most people are acting like victims either. I think they're very loud and they're vocal and they're annoying. And so we think that they're more prevalent, and social media as well. So we think they're more prevalent than they actually are. But if I were to walk down the street or go to a restaurant or interact with, somebody at Origin, for example, and I talked with 100 people, 100 of them would be getting after it. They'd be doing their work. They'd be doing their jobs. They'd be trying to improve themselves. They would be on the path to improvement. So I really don't believe
too busy to be complaining on social media about how the world is affecting them. Yeah.
Right. So it's just what we focus on. But to answer the question in earnest, it's easy. It's easier, right? It's way easier to say, oh, it was Kip's fault. The reason that this isn't a good podcast is my co-host sucks. Couldn't possibly be me.
Yeah. See, I'm not adding meaning to that. So we're going to try out what your advice was earlier.
Look, and that's the reality though. Isn't that what we do? Is like, oh, the reason why I didn't get that promotion is because my boss is an asshole. The reason my marriage isn't what it is because my wife's a bitch. The reason that my portfolio isn't doing as what it should be is because Trump or Biden or this or that. So we make up all of these reasons because it's significantly easier to say it was him than it is to look at yourself in the mirror and say, oh, it was me. I messed that up. I fell short. But ironically, maybe it's not ironic, but it is interesting, is that when you decide to say that it's not anybody else, that it is you, and you take responsibility, not all the fault is different, but you take responsibility for it, then you actually put yourself in a better position. So those who love to be victims, they either do it for one of several reasons. One, they like the attention. And I know a lot of people personally, who like to play the victim because they like the attention. Number two, it's significantly easier. Number three, they actually could believe that they are a victim because that's their programming. Somebody told them that and conditioned them to believe that they're a victim. Or number four, they're just lazy and they know they're not, but rather than face the harsh reality of doing the work, they're just going to continue to perpetuate that myth and then until it becomes their reality or the popular quote, their lived experience.
Yeah. Let me run this idea by you, and you can tell me if I'm off base. And I'm trying not to be too nerdy, but I think a reference to Harry Potter is great.
Okay, all right, we're gonna stop.
I'm gonna turn this shit off.
Kip, I'm gonna pause this recording, and we're gonna rewind. We're gonna go back to the last thing I said, and I'm gonna give you a mulligan on that one. All right, go ahead.
So at one point in those shows, to commit murder, they use the term, it rips the soul because it is unnatural to the soul and it tears the soul apart. I think that when we are out of integrity, one of two things have to happen. I have to justify my action or my lack thereof, or I have to change. And most people are forced to do one of those two things. And when you don't do one of those two things, it's almost like tearing your soul. It just won't work. Yes. You have to justify it or you have to change. And I think that's at the root of victimhood. Because the minute I don't do what I know I should do, then I have to justify it. And most justifications has a finger that's pointing towards someone else. Well, I had to do it because of Ryan. I had to do that because of my boss. I had to do that because my spouse doesn't appreciate me the way I am. I have to do that because my parents didn't raise me like they should have. Like it always has a sense of blaming, AKA victimhood, to it, or they're inspired to change, but it can't be any other option.
Right.
And so when I see victims, I think there's been a whole lot of decisions in their past of being out of integrity, and they've held on to those poor decisions. And as long as they hold on to them, they have to keep it going. They have to keep justifying why they're at where they are, because they haven't decided to go on the other side of that trail and that fork in the road that says, holy shit, this is actually all my fault.
Right. Yeah, I think that's a great point. You know, let's take an extreme example of that. Let's go back to Nazi Germany in the late 30s, early 40s. Those Nazi soldiers, the SS and the soldiers and everything else, Kip, that could have very easily been you or me. Do you realize that?
Totally.
Like, very easily. People don't think, oh, it would never be. No, it would never be. That could very easily be you or me. Okay.
So, and by the way, that's how people treat slavery too. Oh,
how
could they have slaves?
Yes.
And you're like, bullshit. If you're raised in the same exact time that was culturally acceptable and you're raised the same way, you totally would have.
Absolutely.
Anyhow,
100%.
sorry. Yeah.
And a lot of these people are on record saying, I was just doing what I was ordered to do.
Yeah.
I was doing my job. Justification. Because they could not live with themselves if they didn't for what they did, if they didn't justify it.
Yeah. And those that didn't justify it, what did they end up doing? Fighting against the Nazis, fighting against their own people, and it being covert, underground warriors against their own society.
Yeah. Interesting. All right. Proceed.
Jeez. Were we reading questions?
I don't know. I don't know what he asked. We went from, seriously, what was he asking? He was asking, who knows? Victim mentality in Nazi Germany. Who knows how we got there? We got there though.
Yeah. Windows and PCs. All right. L Custom Wood Garage. Mr. Mickler, what would you say is the single most important thing a man or woman should be teaching their young boys and girls about society today to correct some of the things that have been lost over the last 2 decades or so and have led us to where we are today?
I don't know about society. I mean, I think we've been talking a little bit about victimhood and why it's easy to do that. So I would say the best thing that you could teach your child is personal responsibility.
Yeah.
And I do that with my children. And
even right.
Right.
Yeah.
And even at 4 and 8 and 10 and 13 years of age, they're already doing it. Oh, well, he did it. It was him. It was her. It was her fault. Oh no, I didn't make that. Okay. So we learn this stuff very early on. And so I don't let my children.
Human. Yeah.
It is a human thing. Of course.
Yeah.
It's a defense mechanism. Same thing with lying. Why do kids lie? Why do adults lie? It's a defense mechanism. You think if you can weasel your way out of what actually happened that you'll survive. It's a defense mechanism. It's human nature. Yeah. It's the natural man. We talk about that, kid, right? It's like, that's natural. Like we lie. That's what we do. We have to overcome that. We have to fight against that. So personal responsibility is a big fight against that because it's often painful. If you mess up, you have to admit it and say, no, I messed up, or I fell short, or I took advantage of this person, or I did this person wrong. And it's going to cost you financially. It's going to cost you time. It's going to cost you money and attention, maybe a little wounded pride. It's going to cost. There's a payment, a sacrifice that needs to be made in order to reconcile these things. So if there's one thing that we can do to rectify these situations that we see in society, it's to embrace personal responsibility. And I get very frustrated when we have these ideas of revisionist history, and we whitewash, what happened in history, and we gloss over it, or we pretend it's something different than it really was. Like, I think we should own our faults, but not subject ourselves to them.
Yeah.
Right.
Totally.
Like, okay, so let's take the country, for example. We as a country have fallen short in many ways of living up to the ideals espoused in our founding documents. I think that's a fair assessment. Like, we haven't always lived up to the words in the founding documents. We don't need to pretend that isn't true. We should actually embrace the fact that that is reality. And then, okay, well, what can we do moving forward? But then you have people who want to pin themselves back to history that happened 250 years ago without acknowledging that there's been some growth and progression over the past 250 years. Is it perfect? No. It's not even as good as it could be or will be, as long as we continue to work through it and we take responsibility. I look at Martin Luther King, for example, a great leader of the civil rights movement. And he had him and millions of other people had the right, I think, to be upset about the way that they were treated. And yet he took responsibility for it. Mm-hmm. Okay, not my fault. These are circumstances beyond my control. What's happened has happened, and yet I'm going to take responsibility. I just feel like personal responsibility is a huge, huge virtue. And I think it's something that is increasingly lacking in society today. And it's only going to lead to poor outcomes, to put it mildly.
Yeah, because the opposite of that is what? And it's exactly what we're talking about earlier. It's victimhood.
The victimhood.
Yeah. Which means what? Who's in control?
Somebody else.
Someone else. Legacy metal restoration. I wonder if this is a good way to promote your business.
Don't tell them that. You're going to be promoting all these businesses.
All of a sudden, Legacy Metal's like asking questions every single week. Yeah.
We're going to measure, your business acumen based on the quality of questions that you ask. So just be prepared for that.
We'll see if your business goes down or up.
And then we're going to give your business a grade based on the question that you asked. We're not going to do that legacy metals or whatever it was. I don't remember what it was offhand.
Oh yeah. What service provider business do you recommend for improving credit and debt management?
I don't know. I don't have an answer to that one.
Improving credit and debt management.
I have a resource.
A company to like help if you're really into debt, you call them, they help you consolidate.
I don't know what company. I think you just do it yourself. Like that's the
Some
resource.
of those companies seem like scams. I don't know.
Well, a lot of them are like, they're going to consolidate your debt and increase the interest rate. Why would they do that? Why would they take on debt?
Yeah.
Because they're going to make money on it. They know they'll make money on it. That's why they would buy that debt.
I've heard this advice. Let me know if this is legit advice, that if someone's struggling with debt, that you actually should call who you owe and ask them, like, say, hey, I'm struggling. This is the circumstance. Could I reduce my interest rate? Like, literally, like, ask those questions. Is that
that's personal responsibility, right? Because it's two parties. It's two consenting parties negotiating terms. There's nothing wrong with that.
And these debt management companies, that's all they're doing too, right?
Well, maybe
it's probably on your behalf.
Yeah, they might be negotiating it. The other thing too is one thing to be aware when you start settling like that is being aware of any tax ramifications. So talk with your CPA on that, because let's say you have $10,000 worth of debt and you settle it for $5,000. I'm just using arbitrary numbers here. And the company's going to write off $5,000. That's what they're going to do. And then you will be liable for that $5,000, the tax on the $5,000. So because they wrote it off. So somebody's got to pay the tax. Taxes got to be paid, bro. And that company just wrote it off. So they didn't collect the income. So they don't have to pay taxes on it, but they wrote it off to you. You have to pay the taxes on it. So just be aware of things like that. That's why it's good to consult with, financial advisors, CPAs, investment advisors, that sort of thing. So I don't know. I don't know. That's not a thing I deal in, but just get your stuff in order now. Okay. Start having some of that discipline, like we were talking about earlier, look into Ramsey's stuff, get yourself out of debt, whittle that stuff off, talk with your creditors, negotiate new terms, be aware of the ramifications of doing so. And, maybe even talk, like if it's bad, maybe you need to talk with an attorney, a bankruptcy attorney, and see what your options are there. There's a route too. So I personally would say that's a last resort for me because I incurred the debt. I would want to pay it off, but I realize there's extenuating circumstances and you all can make your own decisions. You're big boys. So yeah, I would just be careful, tread lightly.
Something we hear a lot, is guys like have a tendency to blow things off, right? Cause they don't have to deal with it. So, and you've kind of already alluded that in your answer, but like deal with it. Don't shy away from it. Don't pretend it's not there, like own it, take responsibility for it.
It's a good point. The alternative is to spend the next 5 years or even decade or longer of your life fretting about it, dealing with it, creditors chasing you down, letters and notifications.
So stressful.
And I'll tell you what, outside of the financial ramifications of that's going to diminish your confidence and it's going to undermine your authority with the people that you're meant to lead, like your kids and your wife. If you're trying to deal with creditors and creditors are chasing you down and they're sending you bills and eviction notice and last cancellations and creditors are tracking you down, you think your wife, what kind of image is that going to foster from your wife?
Yeah.
Or a client or your boss or your children. So there's some financial ramifications of that, but there is some serious mental and relational issues that will stem from that if you don't deal with it. It's going to suck. It's like the old adage of just rip the Band-Aid off, deal with it. And then you're like, okay, good. And it's going to feel like weight has been lifted off your shoulders. It's going to be good. It's hard to do it first.
Yeah. Jay Landers, 1906. Next project on the house. What are you working on?
We have to insulate the attic, and I think the boys are going to move up to the attic, and we're going to put the store in the attic as well. So yeah.
How tall is it up there?
It's full.
Like a whole other floor.
It's pitched. So as you get toward the edges, it's lower, but you have a lot of usable space. There's 2 bedrooms up there in the attic.
Oh, really? That's
cool.
Yeah.
So it's there's space up there. So we're gonna insulate the attic,
drywall,
the paneling,
drywall.
We're gonna do the insulation. We're gonna do spray foam, and then we're gonna do some like shiplap type stuff that we're gonna put up. It's gonna look really. It's gonna have a cool feel up there. So that's the next project after I get done with the boat, the canoe.
And follow Mr. Mickler
Why are you
on
laughing,
Instagram.
dude?
Well, because I okay, I'll be honest. I'm kind of hoping that you go live and you sink.
What a jerk.
It would be so funny to have you guys work on that thing forever. And then all of a sudden you're like, jump ship.
I'll remember that, Kip. I'll remember that.
You know what?
Thanks for wanting to.
I'm just saying what everyone else is not willing to say.
Winners want their friends to win. Winners want their friends to win. So what does that say about you, Kip? What does that say about you?
I am a loser that want to be entertained by you drowning in your boat. You have to admit, it would be funny.
It would be hilarious if I didn't pour as many hours as I have into that dang canoe.
Guaranteed, I know you wouldn't be laughing. You'd be pissed, which would make it even funnier. Anyhow, so
Kip's had his laugh of the day.
He's going to go live when they.
I am going to go live, and I'm going to sail that son of a bitch across the pond without even taking on an ounce of water.
But you'll have like a little pump in there just in case.
Just in case. I'll have a life vest on just in case.
Just in case. My confidence is really high, but safety comes first. All right. Jesse NDP. How to handle lending family members, maybe close friends too, I guess, money, give and forget, or hold them accountable.
Oh, that's easy. Don't lend them money.
Just don't start.
The best thing you can do is tell family members, well, look, here's what I would do. Family members. Oh, okay. Hold on. Let me start over. If a family member comes to you and says, I need to borrow some money, Your default response should be no. No, that's my default response. Now, that said, I realize that people are in difficult circumstances. You might have a sibling or a parent or a cousin or whoever, whatever, who are in a difficult circumstance. And because they're your family, you want to take care of them. And I actually commend that. So what I would say is lend them, not gift them, lend them the money, knowing that you'll probably never get it back.
Yeah. Yeah. Just expect that as a risk. Yeah.
Because that's the possibility. And if you can't afford that, then you can't afford to lend them the money either. Like if you can't afford, let's say it's $500. Let's say Kip, you're my brother. And you're like, hey man, I'm having a hard time with a mortgage and I lost the job and COVID, blah, 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 blah. Can I borrow $500? And if I could not give you $500, I'm not in the position to lend you $500. Okay. Now, what I would say to you in this scenario is I'd say, if I wanted to lend, but I was okay with it never being returned to me, if I was in that position, I would say, hey, yeah, Kip, we want to help you. I talked with my wife. You definitely want to talk with your wife on this. Okay. Yeah. I talked with my wife and we feel like we would be able to help you out. But in order to do that, we would need to see a plan for repayment from you.
Yeah.
So as soon as you get that over to me, then we can discuss the terms.
And that's good for them because it forces them to actually do what they should have done already and figure out how they could turn things around.
And what you'll probably find is a lot of them won't do it. And Kip, here's what, if you were my brother, here's what you might say. You're a dick, dude. Why can't you just give me $500?
Go sink in your boat.
Yeah. And and that's exactly why you do it, to avoid the emotions that come with it. And then also, I want to know if you're serious about it or if you just want to steal my money from me. Yeah. So if you throw a temper tantrum, I'm like, cool, red flag. And guess what? I caught it and I saved myself. If you actually do it, I'm like, okay, well, like maybe this is legit. And he is serious about repaying. You're still probably never going to pay me back, but at least you're legit. Like I just eliminated some of those red flags.
Yeah.
But totally. If you throw up a temper tantrum or you don't come up with a plan, I'm going to put it back on you. Again, we go back to responsibility. Kip, you want $500 of my money? You tell me why I should do that. Propose that to me and tell me what your repayment strategy is going to be.
Yeah.
Unless you just want to give it to him. And if I was in the position and you came to me and you said, hey, Ryan, like we're in this position. And I said, Kip, here's $500. We've had a great year. This is our gift to you. But this is a one-time thing. If you come to me next time and you ask for more money, we're either not going to do this, or we're going to talk about repayment strategies with interest. And I would totally do that.
Yeah. Well, and it's not that I need to make sure that you don't sound heartless, but like part of this is what they need to do, right? Like in a lot of these cases, they're only thinking about the current moment. Like when I think about like some of my family's like financial hardships, sometimes I'm like, you shouldn't be lending. You shouldn't be getting money. You should be selling the house.
Yes.
You should be doing these other things first, because even if I give you the $500, you're going to need another $5 next month and next month and next month. And you're not even in a position to even like, you don't have the right cash flow to deal with what you have. And so why would I stop the bleeding when you're just going to take a knife to another vein? It's just not, it doesn't make sense. It's a waste of my money and a waste of their time at the same time,
Well, and you're you're touching on something really interesting here when you say you don't want to be heartless. It's actually heartless to give people something that's not going to serve them well. So let's look at it in a different context. I'm not going to coddle you because I care about you. I'm not going to coddle you, even though that might stroke your ego and feel good about yourself. Because I care about you, I'm going to tell you the things that I need to tell you.
Yeah.
So and it's the same thing with the
circumstance.
Right. Because I care about you. Coddling you is actually me caring more about myself, because I don't want to have uncomfortable conversations. That's an ego thing. That's like, I don't want to deal with that. It's a lazy thing.
It's a payoff. Let me give you $500 so you don't bother me.
Well, no. It's not even that. Let me give you $500 so I feel good about it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because if I came to you, here's what most people do.
And
Hey,
then I'll
Kip, yeah.
undermine you after I give it to you anyway and bitch and moan about how you should.
Right. But if again, we'll go back to our scenario of you wanting to borrow if I came to you and I said, yeah, well, we're going to lend you $500. I want to see a plan. I want to see a strategy. That's hard to do if you've never done that before. It's very uncomfortable for you, the one lending the money. But you know what? That person put you in that position by asking you for money. So why are you letting them off the hook? They should feel just as uncomfortable asking for the money as you should, if not more so, of you giving it.
Yeah, totally.
So basically you're saying, oh yeah, sure. Let me take your financial and emotional problems and let me have them because I don't have enough shit to deal with on my own. So what I would do is I would say, Kip, because I care about you, we are going to help you under these terms that allow you to actually help yourself. I guess there's a difference between being, heartless. Is it really being heartless or is it being ballless? That's the better. Like, is it that you don't have a heart or that you don't have balls?
Yeah. As Johnny Lawrence on Cobra Kai would say, don't be a wingless dork.
I haven't heard that one. Thanks for spoiler alert, man. Thanks for ruining that for me.
Oh, sorry.
I gave up on
It's like
Cobra
the best
Kai.
line. What?
I usually watch like 60% of the season. I'm like, all right, got it. And then I move on to something else because I get bored.
So where did you start?
I started in season 1.
And then you never went to season 2 or 3?
I don't even think I finished season 1.
Oh man, it gets better next season.
Maybe that's what they all say.
This is coming.
It gets better.
I know, but this is coming from. I don't like do shows. Like literally, like Cobra Kai is the only show I've watched this for the last 2 years.
We'll give it another try.
It does get better, but I'm not.
I did watch.
I'm not a
Schitt's Creek the other night, and that's kind of.
I heard that's funny.
That's pretty funny. That's pretty funny.
I've heard it. What is that on Netflix or?
Yeah, I think so. Netflix or Amazon. Yeah, I think it's Netflix.
Sponsored by Order of Man Podcast. Schitt's Creek.
No.
Okay. Should we get some more?
Yeah, man, let's do it. Let me take.
Sorry, we're ranting a little bit today.
We're ranting. We're all over the place, but you know what?
That's
it's
good stuff.
5:15 my time. It's 3:15 your time. It's later in the afternoon. Just deal with it.
Yeah. All right. The redneck genius.
I like that.
How do you respond to a coworker who is constantly complains about anything and everything? I know amidst my control issues, it's not my problem to fix, but a negative focus is extremely frustrating to me. It's a disease to the workplace.
I would literally say, yeah, that sucks. What are you going to do about it? Every time. Only one of two things is going to happen. That person is going to actually come up with an answer, which is good. That's what you want him to do.
Oh, so you're recommending he says that to the person complaining.
Yeah.
Got it.
So if somebody comes up and is like, oh, I hate blah, blah, blah. You're like, oh, that does suck. What are you going to do about it? They're either going to come up with an answer, which is good. Again, that's what you want them to do. Or they're going to stop complaining to you because they hate you saying that. But this is also good.
Yeah.
It's different if they're a teammate, like on your team where you have some sort of authority position. It's different. You need to work that out for sure. Yeah. But if they're a parallel, if they're an equal and you don't have any sort of authority over them or with them. Yeah. Oh man, I really feel for you there. What are you going to do about it? And you just say that over and over again. Yeah. They're going to start working through their problems, which I want them to do. That's like what we should be helping people do. That's what we talked about earlier with lending money, or they'll just stop asking you, which is also good. Then you can just put your head down and get to work.
Yeah.
Because look, the alternative is you get sucked into it. And you know what that person's going to do? They're going to throw you under the bus the minute they have an opportunity. Oh, well, Ryan, he was talking to me about it too. You're like, whoa.
Yeah, you're like, I was listening.
I'm not in this. Yeah. I'm not in this. But no, you were in it because you allowed yourself to get sucked in by a manipulative son of a gun.
Yeah.
So the solution is, oh man, I'm sorry. Sorry you're dealing with that. How are you going to fix that? Just do that over and over again to the point where it's annoying. Because look, they're annoying you just as much as maybe you're annoying them. So good. Fair trade.
So in the other example you had, so the guy is on your team, you know,
Oh,
and they're
like a
constantly
subordinate
complaining.
type thing.
Yeah. How do
Yeah,
you, what's your strategy there?
the same thing.
Yeah. But just,
So Kip, let me
but
walk
guide the
through that.
conversation a little bit more.
Right.
Yeah.
Of course. Yes, of course.
Yeah.
So Kip, you're on my team, let's say, and you come to me and you're complaining about something like, yeah, man, that actually is a real challenge. That's going to be a struggle. What's your proposition? You're on my team. You're coming to me with this problem. What's your solution? Well, I don't have one. Cool. Well, how long do you need to come up with one?
Yeah. Like, don't let it die there. Like, oh, he won't listen to me. And you're like, well, let's talk through that. Why don't you think he'll talk? Why don't you talk with him about it? Or why won't he have that conversation with you? Okay, well, maybe we approach it differently and just continue driving.
You give that person an opportunity to improve their attitude. And if that's improving, then you acknowledge it, because it's just psychology. If you're doing well, then I'm going to acknowledge it. Hey, Kip, you know what? Like you've been in a positive mindset. You've really been positive lately. You've been a good contributing member of the team. You've been providing solutions and being creative. And I know it doesn't all work out, but I want to commend you for the work that you put forth over the past 60 days. Big improvement over the past couple of months. Yeah. You're going to do more of it.
Yeah.
And, and alternatively, if it doesn't get better, then I'm going to need to have some more serious conversations. And it might go something like this. Kip, for the past several months, you've been complaining, and then I give you the opportunity to present solutions so I could hear what we can do to help you in your role and in your position and thrive. And yet you don't ever present any solutions. You don't ever come up with any creative ideas, and you continue to complain, and that undermines the team. So here's my expectation for you. And I would like to evaluate this over a 30-day period. And then we continually check in 30 days. We escalate it, or, we celebrate the fact that you've actually improved because you gave them an opportunity to improve. That is what you want. You don't want to fire people. You want those people to get better. And so it's your job as a leader to help improve that person and give them every resource and opportunity. But some people are just never going to take advantage of it. And in that situation, once you've escalated it, once you've given them opportunities, you've set expectations, you've communicated what they are, you've had ongoing communication, at some point you got to sever the tie. Kip, and here's how I would do that. Kip, we've talked now for 3 months. And my biggest concern is that you would continually come to the table with problems without any solutions. And at this point, I've given you 5 different opportunities to propose solutions, and you have not presented any solutions. In fact, the only thing you have done is come to me with more problems. So at this point, I think that it's safe to say that this isn't a good fit for you. And we are going to terminate your employment. And if you have an HR department, you do it obviously with them because that's important, legality issues. But I'm just giving you a hypothetical. And I want you to thrive. So whatever I can do to help you on your next job or to look for a job, I'm here to help you. But I think there's an opportunity for you to be and thrive somewhere else. It just isn't here with us.
Yeah. I like it. Can I add a couple thoughts to that? I shouldn't ask. I just should start talking.
You can't. Never ask a question that you don't want the answer to.
Yeah, I take that back. Let me just start talking.
There you go.
So, and I don't know where I picked this up from. I'm sure it's not a Kip original thought, but I think most people complain and undermine in a work setting with maybe if they're undermining you as a manager or as a leader on the team, because they're not bought in to whatever it is that they're complaining about. And a lot of the time that has to do with the fact that they don't see the vision, that it wasn't clearly communicated. They don't see the bigger picture, or you didn't communicate the bigger picture to them. And so they're like, why are we doing this? And then that's where the complaining comes in. And so just some strategy. It's just a different answer, right, to the question, a different angle. I think everything that you said is still 100% valid, but I think from a strategy, from a leadership perspective, make sure that one, we get buy-in. One of the best ways to do that is for me to include you in the decision process, get your input. and then make sure we communicate the bigger why and the reason behind something. And when we do that, I think that drastically reduces the chances of employees complaining about something or undermining something because they understand. I think most of the time when we complain about something, it's because we don't see the bigger picture. And I've made that an effort even on my part where Brian, the owner of our company, where he'll say XXX, and I'm thinking, why are we doing that? That's like my natural reaction is like, well, that's stupid. That shit. And then my thought is like, no, I don't have enough information.
Yeah. You don't see the whole picture.
Exactly. And I've gone to him multiple times saying, give me more information so I can get behind this. Like I need to see the vision here so I can back it. Because if I don't, and I'm just doing it because he asked me to, the natural tendency is going to be, I'm going to undermine it because I'm not 100% bought in. And even if I don't say it, my actions will come across mediocre. The probability of me taking ownership around the tasks that are related to it are going to dwindle. Now I'm just doing it because he asked me to. I'm not really owning it, right? Because I don't see what the bigger picture is. And I love some advice I got last week about this is when we delegate to employees, it shouldn't be a delegation of task. It should be a delegation of the outcome. And they should be committed to the outcome, not the task at hand. And when they do that, that gives them the freedom to pivot, right? I know what Ryan's vision is, and he asked me maybe to do task A, but because I know the vision, I realize the task I need to be doing is task C or D, and I can own the outcome and the results, not just do the task because I was asked. And those are drastically different approaches to how we delegate and communicate to employees.
I like that. I actually wrote a couple of things down here as you were talking about it, because these are two concepts in the military. The first is decentralized command. So as a leader, what's happening is you're decentralizing the command, meaning that you're letting your subordinates, we're just using that term, but I think you understand, we're letting the subordinates make their own decisions because they're vested and they're bought into the process. I'll give you an example. My background is retail management. I spent a lot of years in retail management, specifically with Buckle clothing stores. And one of my managers, her name was Stacy. I remember as I was in the management development program, she would give me responsibility for a segment and a section of the store. And she would do that with multiple leaders within the organization. And she would say, your responsibility is this. Our objective is to sell these clothes. So what do we need to do here to make this attractive, to make it functional so that we can sell as many of these jeans or these shirts or these hoodies or whatever it was we happen to be selling? And she would give us authority to make decisions. Now, she would give us input. She wouldn't leave us on our own, but she would let us make those decisions. And then we would constantly go back and evaluate. There's another concept as well. So we have decentralized command, but then we also have commander's intent. If you're working with your team, you need to ensure that your team knows what your intent is. In this case, to sell more clothes, right? And if they know what the intent is, then we can backfill the strategy and tactic to achieve the intent, the intended result. So decentralized command, commander's intent, I think falls into line with what you're talking about here.
Perfect. Let's
take a couple more and then we'll wrap it up.
Core 101. My family just had a loss in the family and the funeral's tomorrow. So this funeral's probably last week, almost about a week or 7 days ago. As a man, what can I do to help my family through this?
It's interesting when we have things like this. First of all, well, two things. I'm sorry about your loss. It would be hard regardless of who it is that you lost. It would be a difficult thing. So I feel for you there. And the second thing is I actually commend you for asking this question, because in a time of grief, you're still thinking about serving. That's admirable. Yeah. Big time. Because you're feeling it. If you wouldn't have asked the question if you weren't feeling it. So you're feeling grief and yet you still have a desire to serve. That's an admirable quality in my mind. But there's an interesting thing that happens. I believe that sometimes we mistake action for prudence. We believe that we have to be doing something all the time. And if we aren't doing the special formula or the special thing, then we aren't serving in the way that we feel like we should. We don't feel like we're adding value. And that's a very hard thing for hard charging, high ambitious, highly motivated men. The reason I tell you that is because there isn't some formula for you. There isn't some series of checklists. Okay, first you're going to do this, then you're going to make this phone call, then you're going to console this person this way. It's not out there. It doesn't exist. It would be so much easier if it did. This is part of the hard realities of dealing with setbacks and failures and struggles and loss, because there isn't a manual for it. But I think the best thing you can do, and this is something that I struggle with personally, is just try to observe what's going on.
So that way you can make the necessary adjustments.
Whatever they are. Whatever. I don't know what they are, because I don't know what your mom is like or your dad is like. I don't know what your siblings are like. I don't know how they're handling the situation. I don't even know who it is you lost. I don't know, but you do. You're intimately familiar with these people. And as long as you can just take a step back and observe, how's sis dealing with this? How's mom dealing with this? How's dad dealing with this? What are they doing? How is it going? What's their attitude like? What are they doing well? What are they not doing well? If you sit back and you just give yourself a little bit of margin and start to observe those things, I think you're going to begin to identify how each of the individual family members in your family need to be served. But there's no specific answer I can give you other than to continue to be of service and observe with that servant's heart what they're going through, so you can give the appropriate response.
Breath Talk 24. Can you also talk about how to deal with and overcome anger? I've been struggling with it a lot lately.
There's points in my life where I've been really mad and angry. Like, mad is one thing. Mad to me is like an isolated event. Like, I'm mad, I'm upset, right? That's an isolated event. And then we have anger. And I think that's not as isolated. I think that we begin to experience anger, like bouts of anger, I would say.
Yeah. I don't understand. Like, could you clarify,
Yeah.
how those are different?
You can be angry with the scenario for sure. And I don't know what this guy's asking exactly, but I'm just describing like what I would, if I was angry about a specific situation, the simple answer is just attempt to take back control and figure out what's going on and then rectify the situation, or embrace what is uncontrollable.
Yeah.
Right. Like, there's things like the way people act, maybe somebody did you wrong.
Yeah.
And so you're angry about it. Well, how does being angry about it serve you if it's beyond your control? You just have to accept that that's the reality. But then there's times in my life where I've just felt angry in general, where it's longer than an isolated.
You're doing your wife's, your entrepreneur.
Yes.
PMS.
The entrepreneurial PMS. Yes.
Or
exactly.
Guys will say, I'm in a funk. I don't even know why, but I'm just there. Yeah.
Right.
I gotcha.
And I think that comes from, for me, the entrepreneur or PMS thing comes from a comparison. Like, I start to compare myself. That's one. Yeah. But then also, and this goes back to one of the very first things that you said as we started this conversation, you talked about vision. You've lost sight of your vision, or you've deviated from the tactics that keep you on the path towards that vision. To me, it's usually one of those things. And so now, because you don't have a compass, you don't have a destination, and you aren't actually moving the needle, it's very easy for you to get sidetracked and distracted. And as men, we experience that in a lot of different ways. Me, it's not depression. That's not the right word. I don't even know what it is. That's why I like what you said, funk. It's like, I'm in a weird funk. I don't even quite know how to articulate and describe it.
Yeah.
Some people get angry. Some people are depressed. Yeah. Everybody reacts to it a little bit differently, but I think the underlying issue is that you've lost sight of what you want, or you're not working towards it. So then how do you fix it? Back in alignment. Okay. What is it that I want? Okay. Here's not what somebody else wants, not what I think somebody wants of me. Like, what do I want? I want this. Okay. Got it. What do I need to do today? Not like generally, not over the next year. What is it that I need to do right now and today and tomorrow and the next day and every day until I achieve that objective? And I begin to bring that into my sights and into alignment. I feel better. I can't say it's going to work for you, but I know it's worked for millions and millions of men, because it's hard to be angry or feel sorrow or remorse, or barring mental illness, depression, even suicidal thoughts, if you're actively working and pursuing a noble objective.
Yeah. And if you don't mind me adding to that, if you're fulfilled, if you feel fulfilled, and you will, when you're doing those things, you'll find fulfillment in the moment, in the day, I think.
Yes, I think so. So if you're talking about an isolated incident, what I would say, or isolated incidents where it's just you're losing control at things that you shouldn't get upset about, maybe doing a dive into Stoicism, meditations. Ryan Holiday's got some great information on Stoicism, and that's going to help you. Yeah, Guide to the Good Life. Yeah, that's going to help you control the controllables and let go of the uncontrollables, which is actually really nice. I don't know if I shared this the other day when I was down in South Carolina. I was at Sorenex's Winter Strong event, and I was driving down the road. I think I did share it. And this guy in a blue Mustang like cut me off.
Yeah. That's
Did I talk about it?
Yeah. Yeah. Briefly,
and at first I was pissed because that's how we get, right? Like he cut me off. Yeah. Like how inconsiderate.
Yeah. That's my part of the road.
Yeah.
How dare you pass me?
Yeah. And then I remember thinking, well, I don't know what he's doing. Like maybe he's going home to, maybe his wife just called and their son just broke his arm. Or maybe he's late for a job interview. Like something as trivial as that. He's going to a job interview and he's late, or he's late to pick up his kid from school or from his ex-wife's house. Like I don't actually know what the problem is, but whatever it is, apparently it's much more urgent than whatever I was doing. Yeah. And the practice of Stoicism allowed me to just let it go. Like, it's okay. Yeah. I watched that I don't know if I told you about this one, the video the other day where the two neighbors were arguing about something, and the one neighbor went into his house and got a gun and basically executed his neighbors on the street. It was insane.
Off of a fight, like a yelling fight in the yard.
A fight, which probably boiled up over months or years of animosity and contention and bitter. But they were arguing about something about snow shoveling. That person, those two people died over snow shoveling. You know, the guy was obvious because he killed them and then he went and killed himself. Obviously, mentally unstable.
Yeah, but
that didn't need to happen because they were focused on things that were uncontrollable. Yeah. Just let it go. It's okay. And that practice of Stoicism has really helped me do that.
Well, it kind of goes back to the previous question, about, how does a guy help his family with a loved one that's passed away? Like, and that's a Stoicism practice of, memento mori. It's like being present to your mortality.
Right.
Right. Life is a lot shorter than we realize, and we put a lot of weight on stuff that's not very important. That's why I love backpacking so much. It's always been a good reset for me. Like sometimes if I get in a funk, if I go backpacking for a couple of days, it just kind of roots me a little bit. And I go, oh yeah. Yeah. Like this house, running water, a toilet paper, like all of a sudden I find joy in like very simple things. And I'm thinking, whoa, I'm getting mad at some really silly things. And this too, Ryan's like, that's one of the benefits of that guys have in jiu-jitsu is, when your body has taken over from the space of fight and survival, and it's so primitive, and then you come back to an office and it's like, oh, I have to have this uncomfortable conversation with someone about them not following up on an email. You're like, that's so easy to deal with, because earlier today, I just thought I was like trying to stay alive and I felt like someone's going to kill me.
Right.
And so it's like, perspective, and jiu-jitsu does that in a very interesting way, because you're physically threatened and you're very much surviving, like primitive, like, and we've chatted about it's a game of I kill you, you kill me. That's the game. Yeah. And it's scary to think about it that way. Think, holy shit, like that time I tapped, if he didn't stop, You know what I
He
mean?
could kill
He
you.
could kill me.
Right.
Like, dang, that's scary, right? It's like,
Yeah,
and that's a
for
lot
sure.
of trust in someone. And it puts, so maybe look for those areas to reset a little bit, right? And reboot and reevaluate what's really important and really where you're at in life. I think sometimes we get really angry over really kind of silly things in regards to once we start comparing them to what really matters.
Right. And that's actually what I wrote down right here. I wrote, nothing matters and everything is wonderful.
Yeah.
And when I say nothing, what I actually mean is very little.
Yeah.
Because there are some things that matter, right? Your family matters, your faith probably matters. Like there are things that matter, but then getting cut off on the road. I had a friend who used to say, is this going to bother you in 2 days? No. Then why let it bother you in 2 minutes?
Yeah. I like that. I like that.
Like the guy cut me off on the road. So why? Okay. So am I even going to be bothered by it in 2 days? No, I'm not bothered by it at all. Like I remember it, but I'm not bothered by it. And so why let it bother me for 2 minutes?
Yeah.
And then everything is wonderful. Like everything is wonderful. Think about the technology that we have. I was even thinking about it as we were trying to do this podcast. Like we were having technology issues and we were making fun of Mac and Windows and yet everything is wonderful. Like I'm complaining about technology and yet here we are. We're probably 2,500 miles apart.
We're on the opposite sides of this country.
Having a conversation about topics that are engaging. And millions of people are listening to what we have to say and they're improving their lives. And I'm complaining that it took me an extra 10 minutes to get onto a Mac or a desktop or whatever, It's like nothing really matters and everything's actually pretty wonderful.
And you're not entitled to anything.
Yeah, true.
There's no law that says your wife should love you.
Mm-hmm.
You're not, she doesn't owe you her love.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? You're not entitled to your children or your home. None of those things you're entitled to, which means that they're all like blessings and gifts.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I think that's a good one to wrap up on, Kip. Let's bring it home, man.
Yeah. I mean, we talked about this and I'm bummed I missed your Instagram live because it'd be super great to see those kind of.
We'll do it again. We'll do it again
followers.
For sure. Because I'll make sure
to follow you. What was your Instagram?
Yeah, if you're not following me, Kip, you might want to.
Yeah.
Except for when I talk bad about you, then just pretend like you're not.
Just
following
ignore
me
those. But I have a choice not to let those offend me. So that's one.
I'm going to do my darndest to offend you. For you to actually take offense. I'm going to see if I can get you to be offended about something I say about you.
Nah, maybe skip that idea. Yeah,
I'm
probably a little bit more sensitive than you realize. I'd totally be offended. So to follow Mr. Mickler, Twitter, Instagram, Facebook at Ryan Mickler. And of course, Ryan had to ask earlier today, we need conversations, right? We need critical thinking. We need just logical conversation, not the avoidance of it. And so there's many ways you guys can do that with us. That's through the Facebook group at facebook.com/group/order of man. That's through sharing and subscribing to this podcast, leave it a rating and review, or also catching us on YouTube to that channel as well. Or you can even join us in the Iron Council, where I think those conversations are greatly elevated.
Yeah.
And you're surrounded with like-minded men that are on that same path. And man, how that is so valuable, especially in the world that we're in today. So to learn more about the Iron Council or to join us there, go to orderofman.com/Iron Council. And then as always, support with Order of Man swag at the store. That's store.orderofman.com, where you can get shirts, hats, wallets, flags, decals, and more. And a new product,
the beard oil.
And can they get that from the Order of Man store, or is that from Origin?
Currently, it's not even from, it is an Origin product, but it's all on Amazon right now. So if you're interested,
all on Amazon. Okay.
Yeah. I'll actually probably put some links in the store, so it'll take you directly to Amazon. And I think Origin's doing the same, but so you can check that out there. But yeah, it's all on Amazon right now. And if you pick up a bottle, leave a rating and review on Amazon, a verified review, and send that screenshot to us at, promotions@originmfg.com, promotions@originmfg.com. we will send you a free bottle of beard oil while supplies last.
Excellent. And if you are driving and you didn't catch all that, follow Mickler on Instagram, reach out, and ask for those details. Or I'm assuming that will be on the website, orderofmen.com.
Yeah, we'll make it available
with some
too.
instructions. Okay.
Yeah, definitely.
Excellent.
Cool. All right. Thanks, Kip. Guys, appreciate you. Great questions as always. We'll be back again next week. Until then, go out there, take action, and become the man you are meant to be.